Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another video. I'm out on another walk. It is Saturday, November the 2nd, 2020. I'm sorry, December the 2nd. What am I talking about? 2023. And we're taking a walk to head to the park. And something that I was reading, it sparked my curiosity because I was so I'll tell you what I looked up. I looked up Salafia on Wikipedia. But before that, I actually looked up, was it like secularism, Islamic secularism, and, what the non-Muslims view Salafia to be in their Wikipedia. So I'll come back to that. But I was remembering an incident or an occurrence that happened when I was at the Dubai Expo 2020, right? They had it in 2021. My date's all jacked up, subhanAllah. So anyway, I was remembering when I went there and I asked this young Emirati girl for information on where she got her stamp book for all of the pavilions that you go to. You have to you get the passport book, and you get stamps from each country pavilion that you visit. So she offered to show me the shop where I could buy the passport book, and her mother was with her. So her mother, of course they're Emirati, her mother, they're covered, not niqab or anything, but the mother started to ask me if I covered, am I Muslim? So I was like, yeah, yeah, I'm Muslim. But I have to remember that doesn't mean anything in the Muslim lands. They need to know what you believe. Are you Muslim? The dress doesn't indicate that you're Muslim. That's just for the West. In the West, we're distinguished as Muslim by our dress. But in the East, that means nothing. You're distinguished by what you say out of your mouth, if you affirm Islam or not. You could be Jewish, you could be Christian. It doesn't matter, because all of these religions used to, the women would cover. You have Orthodox sects from amongst them who believe in covering. So you have to make more of a distinction. You have to make it known that you're Muslim. Your dress doesn't speak for you. So I have to stop being taken aback when they ask me, am I Muslim? Because it's not obvious. Not over here. That doesn't work. You don't get asked that question in America. They just know about how you're dressed. So anyways, I said, yes, I'm Muslim. I mean, who's walking around with niqab on and in a hijab, full hijab, and they're not Muslim? But so she was like, no, so you wear that also in America? And I was like, yeah. So they were like, oh, because, we don't wear it in America. We don't wear it there. Like we wear from Texas, or we live in Texas, and a lot of Gulf people are in Texas, and they don't wear it. And I was like, oh, well, I'm from there, and I'm not afraid of them. I know how to deal with my own people, so I don't care anything about what they say or what they think. So they were like, the girl was like, well, they're afraid because, of Daesh, ISIS, and that's why they treat us like that. And I was like, no, it's not true. That's not the case. But I also have to learn how not to get into deep conversations with people, and we're just like basically passing by each other and doing something simple, because that was way too much of a deep topic for me to just open up or engage her in. I should have just left it. So I started to say, no, ISIS has nothing to do with it, how they think about us, maybe the general public. But I said, they don't like you. Before ISIS, they don't like Islam. Before the spread of, the propaganda that the Muslims are terrorists, I said they don't like Muslims. They don't like Islam. The Christians don't like the Muslims because of what's in the Quran itself. They don't. It's not about ISIS or terrorism. No, they don't like the religion. But the Muslims don't know characteristics of disbelief because they are, they're studying secular issues. They're worried about their careers and living their life and practicing Islam based off of what's already in the society, traditions that's passed down. They read the Quran, but they're not really contemplating and learning properly because there's no threat in front of them. This relates to the West. There's no threat. Which brings me to the topic of the video. We have enemies from within and enemies on the outside. The enemies on the outside are, of course, the non-Muslims. And the Muslims in the Muslim countries are not faced with them because they don't live under them. So that's the challenge with being from a Muslim country and having the upper hand. I think I addressed some of that in another video. Why they don't like to use the word kuffar and stuff like that, because the Muslims want to be far away from oppression. So Christians and Jews that are under them, they don't want to make them feel ostracized or feel like they don't belong. So they abstain from using the word. And at the same time, the Muslims become gullible and naive because of how they think, khair and having good thoughts about people. They don't know from experience how the non-Muslims get down, how they act when they're over you. If they read the Quran and contemplated on it, Allah tells us that if they gained the upper hand over you, that they would harm you. All of that is explicit in the Book of Allah. But like I said, the Muslims are practicing Islam through, passed down tradition and things like that. So they're not really contemplating and, for those who don't go the study route. Because you got those, mashallah, the Muslims who, they're religious. Their families are religious. And we're at the park. They got some type of, that's the weekend, so they're out here heavy. It's pretty dark. So anyways, they're not, the Muslims who study and their families are religious and they focus on a religion and they hold on to the Book of Allah, they know these things. But of course, other people drown them out because the other participants in society, other citizens who have only had positive experiences with the non-Muslims who are guests in the country, whether they work with them or go to school with them, they only experience the non-Muslims on their best behavior, but they don't know what it's like to be under them. And even when they go and visit the West, they don't get to experience that flat-out discrimination and racism, especially from the Gulf people, because they tend to go to tourist places and they're not in the nitty-gritty middle of the society experiencing what the Muslims who are from there experience. So it's like it's a it's a lose-lose situation. And the Palestinian conflict with Israel has revealed a lot, where they can actually see the non-Muslims in action and see the things that they say, which woke them up a little bit. But at the same time, they want a utopia. Like, no, not all of them are like that. A narrative has been pushed. Like the West, they fight for equality. They fight for human rights. That's who we look up to be fair. When in reality, that's not the case. That's not the case. They're outsiders looking in. They don't know the reality. So they're not aware that they should be aware of the non-Muslims. That they should beware of the non-Muslims. They don't have their guard up at all. They think that they should just educate them, and that will lift off the ignorance. I'm like, no. Kufr and shirk has its characteristics in this, and it hates Tawheed. Kufr and shirk hates Tawheed and tradition and Sunnah. They hate that. It hates it. It's not compatible with each other, but it's like throwing caution to the wind. But yeah, the non-Muslims, however, the enemies from the outside, they study the Muslim. They've always studied the Muslim. They've entered into the ranks of the Muslims as spies, which many of you know that. They've used the weak Muslims who look up to them as a means to infiltrate the ranks and spread deviation and propaganda and unrest in the Muslim lands. That's something that's known, is documented. And because the ignorant people neglect knowledge, they fall susceptible to these antics of the kuffar. And the Muslims don't learn. Unfortunately, it's sad because they're very innocent. They're very innocent. The Muslims are not malicious. These are not characteristics of Islam. So it's difficult for them to really understand hatred the way that the Westerner understands it. So they're gullible. And it takes atrocities for them to really be like, well, why? I don't understand. We look up to y'all. We thought well of you. I don't get it. Well, I mean, if the religion wasn't neglected and Islamic knowledge wasn't neglected and the Quran wasn't neglected, then you would know that reality from what Allah said. But most people have to get burned, before they realize something is hot, sadly. They can't, if you tell them, they're like, I mean, yeah, I hear you, but that's not what I witnessed. So you have that. And then you have, like I said, the non-Muslims who are constantly studying the Muslims, which brings me back to the Wikipedia article that I read on how they categorize Salafiyin. It makes no difference to the non-Muslims. If you're a religion, if you're Shi'i, if you're Sunni, they don't care. Y'all all Muslim, it doesn't matter. We don't care about the sect. They don't care. So they're gonna label you with whatever. So the Salafiyin, according to Wikipedia, are divided into three factions. You have the jihadists, which is ISIS, Daesh, because of course they say that they're Salafi. You have the, what do you call them people? The Ikhwani, the Muslim Brotherhood, because they say that they are Salafi, the revolutionists or whatever. They say that they're Salafi. And then you have the quietists, as they call them, which would be the Gulf nations. They don't protest, right? They don't they don't overthrow the government. They have names for them all, which is interesting. But they all Salafi at the end of the day. They all say that they take from the first three generations of Islam. The Ikhwan, the Muslimin, or all those other deviants that are combined within them, they claim that Tawheed and Islam, the whole objective of it is to gain power, is to gain leadership. So they're siyasiyin, they're into politics, heavy, right? Political activists. They claim that the kuffar say they Salafi because some of the Ikhwanis, they say they're Salafi because they know that that's the correct way, but what they call to, of course, is not the way of the Sahaba. They distort the information, the image, and they push their da'wah and they name it, they dub it and label it Salafiyah. So the person who doesn't know what Salafiyah is, they think that that's what Salafiyah is, and it's not. And then the jihadists, they put Boko Haram in there, Daesh, ISIS and Daesh is the same. They put them together in the same category and said they're the jihadists. They're the ones who they're fighting for the caliphship. They want to establish the caliphship and, force people to return back to the original way, which is also false. And the kuffar, the non-Muslims, aid and assist. That's why I said they're enemies. They aid and assist and fund these people. They look for deviants and extremists within the ranks of the Muslims and exploit them. They give them money and they use them as a ploy to take down the Muslims so that they can move in and take over. Look at another angle to look at is the colonization. When France, the different European countries used to colonize, they used to invade and colonize the Muslims. France did all of North Africa and some of West Africa, right? So when they realized that it was very difficult to go inside their country and change them completely. So the new way of colonization is through spreading the English language, immigration, refugee programs. So you invite the Muslims onto their territory so that they have more leverage. They educate you in their school systems so that from birth, as a way for those Muslims who are born and raised there, their minds to be changed from Jump Street, from the very, very beginning of their cultivation, which is not 100%, of course, because they still have a different culture in the house. It's not 100%, but look at how patient the kuffar are. They are very patient. They're very patient in achieving their goals. They don't care if it's 100, 200 years down the line. They start now. They start putting the plan in place, and they pass the torch to the next generation and let them know the plans. We're talking about the powers that be, people that are, in different organizations that are behind these things. And the common folk never know what's going on. They never know. They're just puppets, like what they call, this word is being pushed around, the matrix. But that's bullcrap. Actually, the matrix is a real word. Look it up. Look up what the matrix means. But the people who are using it don't understand. They don't understand what they're saying. I don't know what they think it is, but it's what everyone is a part of it, basically. Everyone is being used. Those people who are aware and understand the affairs of the world and how the works and psychology and human beings and how they function, they're the ones who are the masterminds and put things together and plot and plan so that they can achieve their goals. But of course, Allah is the best of planners, and it never works out the way that they want exactly. And that brings me to another point, whereas though I saw a clip from, I think it was an Emirati ambassador. He's like a businessman, actually. I don't think he was an ambassador. But he was a businessman, and he goes back and forth between, the UAE and other Western countries. Yeah, I think it's some type of ambassador, minister, something. But anyway, on a clip he said, we've been telling the Western countries for years to vet who they are letting in their countries from the Islamic lands. Why? Because you have people who are fanatics, extremists, and you just let everybody in without vetting them. And when he made that statement, it made me understand that's why they're careful about letting the Muslims in here, just haphazardly. They know that the Westerner, when they come, they give them visa on arrival because they don't plan to stay here, and they don't They just want to come and do business. They already know that they're going to leave. They're coming and investing their money and they're going to go, right? But the Muslims, on the other hand, they have different factions. They have different agendas. You have sick people. You have people with deviation. So they have to be careful because they've been through a lot. I made another video about that. This relates to trauma in the Muslim world. These are things that the Western Muslim are not aware of. They're not a part of. You haven't been on this side of the world. But if you talk to anyone from Pakistan, from India, from Saudi, they all have stories about different fanatical groups that blew up a school or took over the city or, took people, Muslims hostage, and somebody claimed they were the Mahdi and took over the Kaaba. All of those stories exist. They've experienced these things. So they have to be careful. Saudi is the ones who took in the Ikhwan al-Muslimin when they got expelled from Egypt, but they didn't know why they were being expelled. They thought that they were, just being religious and being persecuted, and Egypt was kicking them out. No, but they found out once they took them in that they were enemies and that they had a belief. And the same thing happened to Palestine. They took them in, and then the Ikhwan al-Muslimin were used by Israel to fight against, what's his name? Yasser Arafat, who was the leader at the time. So the Israelis and Americans funded the Ikhwan al-Muslimin that turned into Hamas in order to fight and take down a Muslim leader. So they are always plotting, and they've always been plotting. The Muslims are familiar with that, but they're not. They were busy battling those people, the deviant people, over the years. So you can't have your eye on both. That's difficult. They don't know how the non-Muslims roll. They don't know. So I understand why they have a blind spot. I get it. But we have to understand that. We don't know what's going on. We haven't been a part of that legacy of being infiltrated by Ahlul Bid'ah, you being in danger of Ahlul Bid'ah taking over your country and changing the entire landscape of the country and the culture, them having an upper hand over you, like what's happening in Yemen with the Houthis. We will never experience that from a Western standpoint. Never. Because they've thrown away religion in totality. That's done. They separated church from state. So no faction of Christianity is coming in. No Lutherans are coming in and taking over Catholics. No Catholics are coming in and taking over Methodists. No Methodist Christians are coming in and taking over Apostolics and establishing. That's never going to happen. So we're 100% clueless. That was going on in ancient Europe, of course, medieval Europe. That was happening. They were suffering from different factions breaking off and deviations breaking off from the Catholic Church. But we, in current day West, will never experience that. So I'm just giving you a little insight on, we have two enemies. Two. You got enemies from within. You have enemies on the outside. And that's just the reality. You have deviated people who don't want Islam in reality. They want their version of Islam. That's not legislated. And then you got the non-Muslims who really don't know what we believe. They don't know what we're upon. In reality, the reality of it, they don't know because it's foreign to them. They just lump us all together. So they don't really know how to attack us because we're foreign to them. Our beliefs are foreign. They've never seen anything like it. So why not use the deviant Muslims in order to infiltrate and brainwash the Muslims and harm the Muslims, and then they use them as allies to come through and try to take it down. But we can't change any of those things. But what we do is we educate ourselves. You educate your families, and for the Muslims who understand and they want to listen, they want to know, you open up that dialogue if it's room for that, and you safeguard yourself and you make dua and you disassociate yourself from these people. because they're not your friends. I don't care how nice they are. They're not your friend. Allah tells us that too. That's why I said if you stick to the religion, then you'll know everything. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to be in the dark. You don't. You don't have to be in the dark. You won't be confused. You won't be beguiled. You won't be fooled. Any of those things. You're going to know. Know that Allah speaks the truth. And there's no one more truthful than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in speech. No one. He knows his creation more than anyone. And we see it before our eyes. We see it before our eyes. Oh, let me get back to the quietist. Yes. Let me get back to the Wikipedia. And then I'm going to mention the king, no, the current ruler of Spain, what he said. And then we're going to close out. So anyway, Wikipedia. When they talked about the different factions of Salafis, they talked about the quietists. And I said that would be the Gulf people, the original affair. They don't try to take out the ruler. They're not takfiris. They don't deem the Muslims non-Muslim. They don't, because of sins, they don't try to take over lands by force, trying to force religion on people. They don't do that. They don't protest. They don't take matters in their own hands. They try to stick to the text, which relates to religious affairs. We're not talking about sins, but those are like, oh yeah, well they have, they're letting, what do you call it, concerts and the kuffar come and blah, 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 whatever. Well, guess what? The Muslims have already been, the Muslim and the Christian Arab have already been performing over here. So the Muslims, it don't make no difference. Non-Muslim, American, British, they invite all genres over here to perform. You got Greek MCs that come over here and do their thing. And I know that just from talking to people. So, I mean, it makes them no difference. But the Muslim in the West is really disturbed by that. You know, may Allah, rectify the Muslims' affairs. But anyways, the quietists, which would be considered those who they don't utilize the methodology of the non-Muslim. And you see the Palestinians and the Western Muslims condemning the Gulf Muslims for being quiet. It's because that's not our way. Yes, they speak and say, they speak out, but their speaking out is not going to resemble the kuffar. It's not going to resemble that methodology. You have to know there's a clear distinction between sunnah and what is not. And unfortunately, sunnah is strange. The original Islam is strange. So they're being dubbed cowards, and they're in the pockets of Israel, and they're rubbing shoulders with the non-Muslims and all this slander, a'udhu billah, from the Western Muslims, of course. So the non-Muslim deemed them quietists. Interesting. And the Muslims are condemning them for not being out in the streets and protesting. That's not from Islam. That's why they're not doing it. And even the non-Muslims understand and know that there's a difference. They even label them for being quiet. But that's the original affair. That's the original affair. It's a way that you express yourself and you get things done. You have to make dua. You address those powers that be in the manner that Islam permits. Treaties and ceasefires and whatever else, whatever diplomatic things and political things that have to happen. None of us are educated or experienced in those areas. So for the ignoramuses that are talking and trying to incite the Muslims and point the finger towards the Gulf countries and want them to also be in disarray and war while they sit comfortably in the West, is sick. You want to see you're barking from a comfortable seat. If your position was like that, why are you sitting in the West? How you condemning the Gulf for not doing what you're doing, but you're sitting amongst the kuffar? How does that make sense? Wouldn't you think that you would boycott the lands of the kuffar? You want to boycott their products. That's cool. Do that. But Why don't you leave the country? Why are you still there? Why are you still there? Make that make sense. Where are you going? Okay. Yeah, make that make sense. You don't want to do that though, right? Just sit and boycott and all this kind of stuff. Which, like I said, that's what you want to do, great. Fine. But it would make more sense that you leave. But no. Anyway, so the king, the current ruler of Spain, he mentioned, that's why I said the kuffar, they always study the Muslims, and they're very well aware of what's going on. The Muslims are asleep. They're gullible. They're naive. They don't know what's going on, right? Not all of them, but many of them are very, very gullible and naive. The king, the ruler, or whatever he is, king, prince, I don't know, of Spain. I think it's the king. He says that the current current influx of migrants that are coming into Spain, he understands and knows that they remember that Spain used to be under Muslim rule and they intend to take it over, right? He is paranoid. But he don't know that the Muslims aren't even thinking like that. They're ignorant of their history, many of them. They just want what you got. They want to come and live in prosperity with you and get some status. That's it. They want a Western passport. But in his mind, he's saying, and he believes, that the Muslims are plotting because they project, or just like they plot. And you know that in Spain they have the yearly parade called the Crusaders. I forget how you say it in Spanish. But they have a yearly parade commemorating the takeover of Spain by the Christians over the Muslims. Every single year. So yes, they're watching everything that the Muslims are doing. And they are plotting because they think that, they're going to they want to get us back. Muslims far from that. They far from that. Y'all always on plot mode. The Muslims are not. And that's what they do. So that's what I wanted to speak about tonight while we went on a walk and check out the park. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Thank you for tuning in as always. And I will see you all in the next video, inshallah. Don't forget the Hijrah, mandate sacrifice. Ma'as salama.